Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Carney's cabinet, the Prime Minister reveals his new front bench.
Smaller and more focused than those of previous governments.
Who's in, who's out, and the new roster of rookies.
Hopes to get back on track and get this plant rolling.
A stalling sector as Honda hits the brakes on an EV plan. Plus, the U.S. trumpets new deals in the Middle East.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
I'm Heather Wright in for Sandy. We begin tonight in Ottawa, where Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled his new cabinet today at Rideau Hall. It's a front bench that includes 24 new faces and an equal number of men and women. Also new for this government is the return of secretaries of state. 10 positions hyper-focused on specific portfolios, ranging from defense procurement to seniors issues to sport. CTV's Judy Trin was watching the swearing-in ceremony this morning and joins us now.
Heather, not only did Donald Trump factor into Mark Carney's crafting of his cabinet, so did Justin Trudeau. Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet, 28 hand-picked lieutenants chosen to fight a trade war as Canada faces threats from an American president.
Canadians elected this new government with a strong mandate to define a new economic and security relationship with the United States and to build a stronger economy.
But it's not just Donald Trump who looms over Carney's choices. The Prime Minister needed to distance himself from his predecessor. Of the prominent ministers who served under Justin Trudeau, only a dozen remain in Carney's inner circle.
This cabinet is smaller and more focused than those of previous governments. It will operate with a commitment to true cabinet government, with everyone expected and empowered to show leadership.
Francois-Philippe Champagne remains in finance, while Chrystia Freeland stays in transport and internal trade. Of experienced ministers, several are changing places.
I, Indira Anita Anand.
Anita Anand becomes Minister of Foreign Affairs, while Melanie Joly shifts to the industry post. Meanwhile, David McGuinty gets promoted to defense.
I, Tim Hodson, do solemnly and sincerely declare.
There are 15 rookie ministers, among them Tim Hodgson, the former chair of Hydro One, who becomes Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, and former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson, who becomes the Housing Minister. Carney's first ever cabinet also has an equal number of men and women, including Mandy Gulmasti, who is the first Indigenous person to lead Indigenous services. As calls for Alberta to separate grows louder, Carney has bolstered Western representation. A former reservist and lawyer, Eleanor Ozowski, is the new Minister of Emergency Management. Manitoba Métis MP Rebecca Chartrand becomes the Minister of Northern Affairs. Buckley Belanger, who has served as mayor and in Saskatchewan's provincial government, becomes a Secretary of State.
Our new government will be a strong and reliable partner to the provinces, the territories, and to Indigenous peoples.
But it's not enough of a change for the Conservatives.
He appointed Trudeau's old team and Trudeau's old advisors.
In addition to the 28 cabinet ministers, Mark Carney also appointed 10 secretaries of state to support their work. The work officially begins May 26, when Parliament resumes. Heather.
All right, Judy, thanks. Among the new faces making up Carney's cabinet are many rookie MPs serving with a prime minister new to Parliament himself. And that could present a challenge for the new government as it begins the work of implementing an ambitious agenda. CTV's Mike LeCouture is in Ottawa and joins us now. Mike, a big job ahead for some new ministers.
Yeah, and some of them, Heather, will have to learn on the fly, especially when you consider that there are 15 new members of this cabinet who've never been at that table. And 9 out of 10 of those secretaries of state haven't been in those roles either. There are 4 that I want to show you right now. The first one is Tim Hodgson. He is the former advisor to Mark Carney when he was the governor of the Bank of Canada, special advisor to him. He was also the CEO of Goldman Sachs Canada from 2005 to 2010. You also have former mayor of Vancouver, Gregor Robertson. He's now the Minister of Housing. Hodgson, by the way, the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Then Lena Mettledge-Diab, she was an MLA in Nova Scotia, but now she's got the immigration file. And Marjorie Michel, she's the new Minister of Health, previously the Deputy Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So a number of these people have some sort of experience, but not this type of experience. And that's why they may have a bit of an uphill climb. Still, Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canadians elected his government on a change mandate, and that is why he believes it is important. Have a listen to him.
How you govern, how you run cabinet meetings, how you run committee meetings, how you delegate authority through the mandates to ministers, so you get the maximum out of that experience and those fresh perspectives.
And Mike, tell us a little bit about the Secretaries of State role that were announced today.
Yeah, we're hearing from the Prime Minister's office that essentially they will be rotated into those weekly cabinet meetings. They likely won't be at every single one of them. So I'll give you one example. They have this particular focus, like defense procurement. That's Stephen Fuhr. So when it calls for it, they may bring them in, and particularly ahead of a NATO meeting, because of course procurement of defense effectives will be something that this government wants to focus on, especially ahead of NATO meetings. So that is why they have this special focus with these secretaries of state. And again, they will have their own ideas of what to do with them, and they won't be in the full cabinet at all times. Heather?
All right, Mike Lecouture in Ottawa. Thanks, Mike. And it didn't take long for criticism of the cabinet to come from Alberta after Toronto MP Julie Debruzen was sworn in as Environment Minister. The Chief of Staff to Danielle Smith posted, "Sit down for this, Alberta," saying that Debruzen supports carbon pricing and is against oil sands expansion. He added, "Fire, meet gas." Smith has said she wants to reset Alberta's combative relationship with Ottawa and is calling for more oil and gas pipelines. All right, let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent Vashi Kapelos in Ottawa. Vashi, you were watching the cabinet swearing in closely, and you also sat down exclusively with the Prime Minister. What did he tell you about his new team?
Hi, Heather. Yeah, I'll pick up where you left off. Certainly a lot of news coming out of this interview, and you can watch the full interview in just a few moments here, about Alberta and the possibility of pipelines, a couple of other things that the Prime Minister has been asked about around C-69 and the emissions cap. We got some very concrete answers from him, so stay tuned for that. Also asked him a lot about cabinet and whether this is real or meaningful change. And then, of course, I had to ask him about Donald Trump. Have a listen to our exchange on that. When you called Donald Trump transformative, did you mean transformative in a good or bad way?
Yin and yang. There's both.
There's both?
I said what I said. He is. What matters for Canadians is that the relationship with the U.S. has changed. I've been clear about that. For months. I think others were very slow to recognize that. I think it's now increasingly understood. Secondly, that it has bigger ramifications than just the U.S. The way the global economy is working is changing. We need to change. Working with President Trump, working with his team as possible, sovereign nation to sovereign nation, that's what I'm pursuing.
Do you plan to renegotiate USMCA? Can you trust him as a partner?
The sequencing, we'll see about the sequencing. I think the revealed preference of the U.S. is working on some of these sectoral aspects before broader trade deals. It is an advantage to us that USMCA exists. It is not right that it's being violated, but it is still an advantage that it exists, and we intend to make the most of our advantages in these negotiations.
Do you trust him?
I will work with them and negotiate with them, yeah.
But do you trust him?
Look, my answer is my answer.
So you can hear there, Heather, no explicit answer. He won't say, the Prime Minister, whether he does trust U.S. President Donald Trump. I raised the question, of course, because the person who signed USMCA is Donald Trump. The person who has contravened it with the use of tariffs is also Donald Trump, so certainly might inform whatever negotiations do ensue. And as I said, lots of other stuff discussed in the interview, including the cabinet picks, lack of perceived change, as well as what's going on in Alberta and making Canada an energy superpower. So that's all coming up.
All right, Vassy Kapelos, looking forward to that and appreciate your insight as always. And you can catch Vassy's entire exclusive interview with Mark Carney, his first Canadian interview since becoming Prime Minister, at 5 p.m. Eastern on CTV News Channel and on ctvnews.ca. Well, in another blow to Ontario's auto industry, Honda announced today it is pausing its planned $15 billion electric vehicle investment, a project that was expected to create roughly 1,000 jobs and produce nearly 250,000 EVs a year. CTV's Adrian Gabriel is following this story. And Adrian, what's the reaction?
Heather, Honda's plans to stall its $15 billion electric vehicle plans for Canada as the country's auto sector swerving into a ditch, with many industry insiders saying this all comes as no surprise.
Hey, there we go. Now that's green.
Political handiwork and plenty of glad handing were on full display in Alliston, Ontario, when the deal was first announced in April 2024.
This is generational.
In an email to CTV News, Honda says the recent slowdown of the EV market has led to an approximate 2-year postponement of the comprehensive value chain investment project in Canada. Ontario's premier, who championed the deal, is now in the hot seat.
When those companies break their promise to workers and to communities, he just throws up his hands in the air.
When I've talked to Honda, they've promised us they're going to continue on with their expansion. They're going to keep that facility moving forward.
The Japanese auto giant had pledged a $15 billion investment. Ottawa came to the table with $2.5 billion in tax credits, while Ontario committed $2.5 billion in incentives to build a new electric vehicle manufacturing plant and open multiple EV battery facilities. Ottawa and Ontario have bet big on EVs.
2 years ago, when the bets were made, we're way off base. We may end up with battery plants that aren't particularly busy in the early phases.
Industry watchers say while slumping electric vehicle sales may be in part to blame, the Trump effect simply can't be ignored.
Every day, up and down, the tariff roller coaster goes. And that uncertainty means if you're a business leader, you can't make any real decisions around investment until you have some stability, consistency, security going forward.
When the $15 billion agreement was announced back in the spring of 2024, it was touted as the largest auto investment in Canadian history. The deal has now been parked. Heather.
All right, Adrian Gabriel, thank you. Donald Trump arrived in Saudi Arabia today, the first major foreign trip of his second term. And the U.S. president was warmly received by the Saudi crown prince and spoke for over an hour at an investment forum in the capital of Riyadh. CTV's Joy Malbon joins us now from Washington. Joy, amid the pomp and ceremony, there was a flurry of announcements, including an important one about Syria.
Yeah, Heather, the president teased something big was coming, and this is a pretty big change in U.S. foreign policy. He is lifting U.S. sanctions on Syria, designated a terrorist state since 1979. Trump will meet the new leader of the rebel group that overthrew the dictator Bashar al-Assad tomorrow. Trump said he lifted sanctions, trade embargoes, and travel bans because the crown prince asked him to. That got the biggest applause. Take a listen.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince. The sanctions were brutal and crippling and served as an important, really an important function, nevertheless, at the time. But now it's their time to shine.
Joy, Donald Trump also spoke about Saudi Arabia potentially normalizing ties with Israel. Now, that did not get quite the same reception in the room, did it?
No, it did not. Now, Donald Trump likes to think of himself as a peacemaker, extending what he called an olive branch to Iran. But, yeah, that didn't go over too well. The president's, quote, desire for Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel, the so-called Abraham Accords, and it's one of Trump's crowning achievements, but they didn't look too pleased given the grinding war in Gaza. Have a listen.
It's been an amazing thing, the Abraham Accords, and it's my fervent hope, wish, and even my dream that Saudi Arabia will soon be joining the Abraham Accords.
The president, ever the deal maker, says the Saudis have agreed to a $600 billion investment in America. In turn, the U.S. will sell them a weapons package worth $142 billion. Heather?
Joy Malvin in Washington. Thank you, Joy. Coming up, a star witness takes the stand against Diddy.
Her testimony is very crucial to the state's argument.
Disturbing new details from Sean Combs' ex-girlfriend. The prosecution's star witness in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial took the stand in New York today. The singer and model, known as Cassie, described violent arguments and physical abuse during her decade-long relationship with Combs. CTV's John Venevali-Rao now with more on today's proceedings and a warning that some of the details are graphic.
Sean Combs' mother, along with his daughters and others, arrived at court as the prosecution's star witness prepared to take the stand. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, whose lawyer said this.
Very ready and confident.
Ventura testifying that during her more than a decade-long relationship with Combs, she frequently endured physical abuse, telling the jury he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me in the head if I was down. The jury's already seen a video of Combs beating Ventura at a hotel.
Her testimony is very crucial to the state's argument.
Combs is alleged to have orchestrated elaborate sex performances called freak-offs, fueled by drugs. Ventura, an R&B singer, described how a male escort would be hired to have sex with her as Combs watched and directed the performance, saying she was 22 when first asked to take part. He proposed this idea, this sexual encounter that he called voyeurism. Adding freak-offs happened almost weekly and became a job, usually lasting 2 to 3 days. She also said they involved lots of baby oil. Ventura testified she didn't want to engage in them, but loved Combs, said he'd become violent if she refused to take part, and feared being blackmailed by videos of the encounters.
Bad boy never fake a switch on the set. Haters kiss the baguette.
The 3-time Grammy Award winner has pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering. Defense lawyers have said the violence was evidence of jealousy and plan to argue the sex was consensual. Ventura's testimony is expected to resume tomorrow. Heather.
All right, John Venevali-Rao, thank you. Still ahead, battling the flames in Manitoba. The human factor behind the raging wildfires. Nova Scotia RCMP say they have received more than 180 tips in connection to the search for 2 missing children who disappeared on May 2nd. That morning, Lily and Jack Sullivan were reported missing, prompting a massive search through a heavily wooded area, which was scaled back 5 days later. On May 8th and 9th, the underwater recovery team searched bodies of water in the area, but no evidence of the siblings was found. A state of emergency was declared today in part of Manitoba as wildfires forced a number of people from their homes, with hot weather and dry conditions making the fires harder to contain. CTV's Alex Carpa on the thread and one woman's harrowing journey away from the flames.
Okay, I could smell the smoke. This was a sight Delaney McIntyre had never seen before. She shot this video while driving through a wildfire in northern Manitoba.
The heat that it gave off, it was just like surreal to feel that and experience driving by that.
McIntyre and her son were forced to evacuate late last week when they were staying at her sister's home in Clearwater Lake Provincial Park. She says the highway where she captured the video was the only way out to safety.
You can see fires from the distance, but not up close where you could feel the actual heat from it.
According to Manitoba's fire map, there are 24 wildfires currently burning in the province. The wildfire near the Pas, Manitoba, which is over 400 square kilometers in size, is one of 3 wildfires determined to be out of control. 42 firefighters from BC have arrived here in Manitoba to help fight the ongoing wildfires in the province, including in the distance a fire near Lebo, Manitoba. The province says most of the fires contained or not have been deemed to have started by human activity. The Manitoba Wildfire Service says the reason for this is the lack of lightning in the region.
It could be through machinery, mechanical, motorized vehicles, accidental. There's a lot of different, when we use the word human cause, it's very broad.
Fire crews are expected to get some help from the weather this week with lower temperatures and rain in the forecast, but fire experts say this is just the beginning of wildfire season.
The seasonal forecast suggests much of Canada is going to be hotter than normal, particularly the west, from both northwestern Ontario to BC, and many of those areas are going to be below normal precipitation.
The Manitoba government has also issued an evacuation order for Nopeming Provincial Park in the eastern part of the province due to ongoing wildfires there. And there's also an out-of-control wildfire near the Manitoba-Ontario border, which is causing some closures near Whiteshell Provincial Park, which is a popular spot for cottagers. Heather.
All right, Alex, thank you. After the break, a wild and close encounter. The terror of being stalked by a grizzly bear. As the weather gets warmer, visits to Canada's national parks are ramping up, but the spring temperatures also mean bears are emerging from hibernation, increasing the likelihood of a grizzly encounter. CTV's Kathy Lee in Calgary now. And Kathy, a close encounter, but also a cautionary tale.
Heather, Parks Canada says bears prefer to avoid people, but encounters can still happen, and when they do, it can be a terrifying experience. Take a look at this video of the hiker and his face-to-face encounter with a grizzly.
Still following me, but you gotta remain calm.
Isaac Shaw was in Banff National Park when this happened. In a social media post, it shows he was hiking when this massive grizzly bear came around the corner and followed him. Shaw stayed calm through it all, backing up slowly with his bear spray in hand.
I mean, my first time encountering a grizzly bear, so yeah, I was like a little unsure what to do. A lot of you guys mentioned that I should have just walked off the trail. Yeah, that would have been a great idea. I was just scared.
More bears are coming out of their dens as the weather warms up. In Regina, this black bear was roaming around the university campus. The province of Saskatchewan and Parks Canada have put out notices about bear safety. An expert CTV News spoke to says if there is an encounter, stay calm, don't run, remember to pack bear spray and know how to use it.
I come across lots of people in the backcountry who still have that little safety strap still on their spray canister. Well, you can't get that little marketing safety strap off in time to use it properly.
While it's important to know what to do when there is a bear encounter, Parks Canada says avoiding one is the best approach. And one of the most effective ways to do it is to make a lot of noise while on the trail to let the bear know you're there. Heather.
All right, good tips. Kathy Lee in Calgary. Thanks, Kathy. And that is our newscast on the day a new cabinet is sworn in Ottawa. I'm Heather Wright. We'll see you tomorrow.